Hey there, I'm Zimnoch, and in this episode, we're going to talk about 5 questions that a landlord should ask themselves before they determine their selling strategy on one of their rentals. Over the last few months, actually, and most recently again, I've been approached by landlords that have determined that they might want to actually sell one of their rental properties for whatever reason, right? And the most common thing that the first question they ask is, Randy, what should I do? Should I sell it as is, or should I renovate it and then sell it? Well, obviously the answer in the first place is always, well, depends, right? However, I do have certain questions, and I got 5 of those that I would basically recommend you ask yourself. And it's the same thing I did here with one of my clients. We went to the property, we looked at the property first because I needed to see what we're up against when it comes to the condition and the repairs, because it's obviously livable because someone is living there. So that's not the question, but like what condition, what are we up against, right? But here's the 5 questions that I asked my client. Number 1 is, how urgent is it that you have to sell, right? We need to first know that. Do you need to sell within 2 months, or you can wait? How much is the scope of work? Is it $25,000 or is it $90,000? In this situation, it was more like $90,000 based on my experience in investing. Where is the money coming from? Where is my client going to get the $90,000 to renovate this property? In this situation, they actually had to borrow the money, or they will have to borrow the money, on which they will have to pay interest. So what is that amount? They have to calculate that, right? Then, how much time will it take? Well, for a $90,000 renovation, it will probably take, for someone that doesn't do it on a regular basis, it will probably take them 2 months just to renovate it, right? So that has to be calculated. And then lastly, because I always, in my opinion, is better to ask the renter to leave and then sell it vacant, right? Regardless if you decide to sell it as is, or if you decide to renovate it and sell it fully upgraded. That's just to me, that's just something I really would stand on, and I can prove that you can make more money regardless, because just the ease of access, number 1, and in both situations, there will be some work, like minor work, that we would do to make the property at least look a lot better than if someone is living there, right? So in both, I think you get more money. So what is the loss of rent? That's the last question. How much rent will you be not getting over the next 2 months that you would if you just sold it faster as is, right? So once we did those numbers together right there, literally we were standing there in front of the house, it was becoming very clear, okay, that most likely the as-is strategy is probably going to be a lot better than going all out, renovating everything, and spending all that time with all the factors that I just described. Because literally it seemed like, once we did the numbers, that the net to them, right, which is really what the seller is asking when they're asking me, Randy, is as-is better or upgrade? What they really want to know, what will net me more money? And when we did all that and got all the answers, it was pretty evident that it might work out to be a very, very similar number, right? In most cases, if you don't have all these additional costs and the rehab is not that big, you should get more money with a fully renovated home. But when you have all these components that play into it and the numbers start getting shrunk and shrunk and shrunk, we ended up basically at a very similar net, right? Which is what they care about. And that was my recommendation in this situation. I said, look, I think we should leave everything as is, because the house inside was totally outdated. And they had some ideas like, oh, maybe we should fix this. Maybe we should put granite over these older cabinets to make it look a little better. Maybe we should do this. And the truth is, like, it is so hard to just do one thing and then that will probably lead to another thing. And then this scope creep will just literally start going down, and all of a sudden you're renovating the house. But now it looks so weird. It looks completely mismatched. It's not technically fully renovated. It's semi-renovated. And now the buyer, that's going to come and try to convince themselves to put an offer on this house is just confused. Like, okay, do I have to update this or not? Because the cabinets are outdated, but the countertop is new. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it just confuses the buyer, and now they're going to submit an offer as if they were buying it as is. So honestly, that's why I was like, honestly, let's not touch anything inside. But what we'll do is we're going to clean it up once the tenants leave. We're going to do a deep clean. We'll stage the property still. We'll take professional photos so it will look good. One thing I did recommend, and this is where it starts becoming case by case, is because this house had windows that were fully updated a few years ago. The roof was in really good condition. So one thing that we're considering is painting the outside and doing some yard work, right? Because then what that could create, and I'm always thinking of the buyer, when the buyer comes up to the property, one, the curb appeal will be very nice, and two, the buyer is going to basically say, okay, I don't have to do anything on the outside because it's painted, the yard is done, windows are done, roof looks good, so they literally remove that from their mind, and now they're only focusing on what's inside. So in this particular situation, it's something that we're considering. Now, if the roof was old, if the windows were outdated, probably not even worth doing that, the painting in the yard. You follow what I'm saying, right? So it's a little bit case by case. There is always art and science between everything we do in real estate, and this is a perfect example of it. So again, just think about it. When you go through the property, when the seller is asking you that, it's all about what is the net to them. Apply these 5 questions, ask them those 5 questions, or if you're the investor watching, ask yourself these 5 questions. Or if you want, call me. Let's talk about it, right? And that's how you create a win-win.